Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight podcast for.
Here we go. Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first two periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliot.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliot.
Hey, hey. Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight podcast. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 21st edition of LFP Live. LFP Live can now drink in the United States of America. Congratulations to us. We didn't have an episode last week. We're back. Let's be real. Nothing really happened in that span of, 7 days where we didn't have an episode or anything come out. But, we are here to talk about a couple things. We've got some, a bit more of an unveiling of our plans for the rest of the summer. We'll leave that till a little bit later. But before we get anything started, Connor, Elliot, how you guys doing?
Doing great. Spent the night last night at the Outdoor Comedy Festival. Great night. Beautiful night for it. There was a weather warning at one point, but it ended up happening, and it was great. And then I saw the Sea Bears one last night. The Gold Eyes are on a hot streak, so a lot of good happening in the city right now. I'm doing great.
I'm good. I mean, what was it? A couple weeks ago, everything was bad happening for all the summer sports teams in the city, and now it seems like everything's kind of
except for the ball.
Yeah, I was gonna say unless we don't have to talk about them. We've talked about them enough the last 5 years. So yeah, I'm doing okay.
Had their airtime.
Wow. Yeah. But no, I think whether we want to or not, later in the episode, we're gonna have to sneak a summer sports recap in with a little bit more detail because there's a lot of excitement going around right now. I mean, first and foremost, Gold Eyes are hot right now. They are rolling. Sea Bears, another win last night, and it was another exciting one from what I can gather. But I think what we're going to start with, though, because there's still a very notable name who has not put pen to paper, is who still has to sign, and why is it taking so long for Cole Perfetti? I feel like I was anticipating something a little bit earlier in the off season, but the fact that we're reaching August soon, which first of all, don't like that. But we're reaching August soon, and Cole Perfetti's still an RFA. Connor, are you worried at all that it's stretched on this far?
I'm not. I just flipped over to Puckpedia. Said the Jets have $3.5 million in cap space. I'm just gonna double check that on another site just to make sure. Because it feels like they have more than that. But either way, I'm not really too worried in terms of, I don't know, you see in other sports. I mean, sometimes you even see in hockey, right? Players who are young, hitting their first RFA deal will want a contract that the team isn't willing to, and then it ends in a trade request. I don't think we're headed there. I think there was the idea floated out that maybe, Cole Perfetti could be coming on a long-term deal, now that they missed out on bringing back all the free agents that they had, missed out on Sean Monahan, we've talked about that, that's a subjective term, I guess. But Cole Perfetti, I think we're just headed towards where we said we were going to head 3 months ago, which is a 2-year, $3 million bridge. And that's that. I think the idea of a long-term deal was floated out, and it's still a little okay, it makes sense. Perfetti is a guy with an injury history and coming off a good year, but was benched down the stretch. I don't know how willing he'd be to go long-term. That's kind of the problem there, but I don't think we're headed towards anything like a trade request or anything extreme. I think we're just swinging back maybe to the 2-year, $3 million deal that we all kind of predicted months ago. I don't know about you, Elliot.
I don't think there's any cause for concern, to be honest. This happens quite frequently, and I think honestly in this case, I think this is more to do with the Jets than it is Cole Perfetti. I think this is them still trying to assess what they want to do in terms of I think they're still on the fence about, okay, are we wanting to go short term? We want to do a long term. Now, this also could be, Cole saying, I want to go long term, and the Jets have decided, no, we want to go short term. We want to do a 2-year, $3 million bridge deal. And Cole's coming back and saying, well, no, I don't really want to do that. I would like to sign long term here. And the Jets are just trying to figure out the best way to go about that with their current roster situation and cap space, right? But you would think
$5.8 million in cap space before you talk about it.
I was just going to say,
Puckpedia says, I looked at cap wages, which is another one of the, the other ones that we are kind of diverting to, that cap friendly. Hope we said our final prayers to them, but 5.8 million in current cap space. So that gives them the flexibility to give them 5.5 per year for the next 5 or 4 or whatever. Like if they want to go a little bit longer, but yeah.
Sean Monahan not coming back, I think, is a big proponent to that.
Yeah, that would be Sean Monahan's money right now.
Yeah, and the Jets,
right? Like the Jets would have no cap space.
Yeah,
for all the people that wanted Monahan back. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I just think that I think there's some sort of impasse here between the two teams, whether it be on the Jets side, depending on what they want to do with Cole, or it could be Cole just saying, I want to go long term, and the Jets have already decided they want to go short. And so I don't think there's anything to worry about. I'm sure a deal will get done. I think I'm in agreement with you, Connor. I think at some point, I think the Jets are trying to say to Cole that we're trying to go short term with you right now so we can still try to compete and have some space to make some moves. Because that's the other thing. If you think about, like, realistic number, let's say that Sean Monahan 5.5 goes to Cole Perfetti. So let's say it's 5 over the next over many years. Doesn't really matter. The Jets then still don't have cap space. Then they still have to try to make other moves to try to, deal with cap space later if they want to make moves at the trade deadline or at some point in the season. So I think that's what there's a balance here that everybody's trying to keep. And at some point, somebody has to give, obviously, and we'll see what happens. Someone's got to blank.
I do think, like, the fact that they have 5.8 million in cap and not 7.5, let's say, also shows that maybe we're going towards a bridge here. Like Chevy, they do usually spend to the cap, but if he spends like, I haven't brushed up on the CBA lately, or the cap, rules. I don't know how much you're willing to, or you're able to go right up to the cap, but I don't see Chevy as the type to go, okay, we have 5.8 million in cap. I'm giving 5.79 to Cole Perfetti, and we'll have $1 left in cap. Like, I think
because there's also the bonus issue, right?
Yes, like a little bit of breathing room, like a 2.5 million of breathing room. In past years, they're still spending to the cap because it's Perfetti's bonus money. He would always bring up. Now it'll be, I don't know,
Mark Scheifele's bonus.
Yeah,
Brad Lambert's bonus.
Brad Lambert's bonus money. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, Brian. Are you worried at all about this?
I'm not, but I'm more wondering, and I know, Elliot, you brought it up that maybe Cole Perfetti wants to go long term. I'm not convinced that he would, given the fact that I have a feeling that he's gonna kind of feel out this coaching change as much as everyone else. Where obviously there was some issues with deployment and playtime down the stretch there under Rick Bowness, and you have to wonder if he's also like, all right, so Arneal's in. Is he going to, have a more consistent role carved out? And obviously Arneal has said all the right things, but obviously, the cliche always stands, actions speak louder than words. So what's Scott Arneal going to do in terms of his forward group? So are we really sure that Perfetti would want to go any more than 2-3 years? Because let's be real, like if we start falling into some sort of pattern again of, why is, Perfetti not playing more of a consistent role despite having a decent production level in limited minutes. I think then you start worrying, because let's be real, because then you're getting to a point where the concerns haven't changed. But I do think though that we're looking at that bridge range for both parties. I think it makes sense for both parties, more of a prove it from Perfetti's camp saying, all right, play us, and approve it from the Jets saying, okay, we'll play you, do something. So like, I feel like that's what we're looking at. And I mean, my personal prediction for this, I think when we did it was it 2 or 3 years by 4 million?
Yeah.
Like 3.754 ish. You guys in that range too?
I said the Velarde deal, which is 2 years, 3.4675,
Yeah.
or like there's a million digits at the end of it, but it's 3.4, 3.5 ish. I think he's gonna get 2 years, 3.5, right on the nose.
Yeah.
And I was in the camp over the past maybe couple weeks here, looking at the Jets cap space, maybe thinking, I don't know, maybe there is a long-term deal here to be done, but I don't know. I think I've kind of died down on that hope, that dream, maybe that they get him at a cheap AAV and they get the Quentin Byfield contract. Like that Byfield deal is gonna be an absolute steal in years 3, 4, and 5. Like he's going to play
Yeah.
way better than a $6 million player. But then Quentin Byfield, it's still like he's still relatively young, or very young as a player. I mean, he just broke out kind of last year. After that deal, he'll be able to cash in if those last 3 years are truly a steal. He's not locked up for 8 years and then we'll miss out on his prime years. Like he'll still have a massive contract waiting for him if he does outperform it. But that's kind of the hope for a long-term deal with Perfetti is like 5 years. He kills it in the final 3 years of that deal. Then you'll have to give him a big payday, but you get all this cap savings. And I think 2 years at 3.5, you're getting 2 years of cap savings because I think Cole Perfetti is better than a $3.5 million player when he's on. Last year down the stretch, he wasn't. But the first, I don't know, half of the season, first 3 quarters of the season, he was on and he was a top 6 player and better than a $3.5 million player. So I don't know. What do you think, Elliot?
I think it's probably around 3.5. I don't think that they do anything more than that. I don't know. I've always been a proponent of at least if you're not going to go long term with a player, try to maximize the amount of cap space that you can have after that deal. So obviously, if you said 5.5, the Jets still have in space. They still have 2 million left, whether that be breathing room for bonuses or whatever you want to call it. I personally like to see it as that's still breathing room that you can go and make some moves and take on a little bit more cap space
at the deadline too.
At the deadline,
some cap
in
space.
another trade. Obviously, there have been other players on this roster floated around as trade bait. So doesn't mean that you don't go out and trade somebody and have to accrue a little bit extra cap space for the new player coming in, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. I think the long-term deal would be good for Perfetti, but yeah, at this rate and at the current situation of the club, I don't know if it happens. I wish it would, but I don't think it does.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like we are quite literally just waiting for Perfetti. Like, and obviously there is one more RFA to sign, and that's Simon Lundmark. I mean, technically, if we're going under technicalities, Christian Vesalainen is still needing a contract, but
Ooh, did he get a long-term deal? Maybe.
Yeah, my story, why Christian Vesalainen is the next big thing. I have no idea how he's been
said
doing.
It in 2018.
Yeah.
God.
8-year deal.
8-year
Bring
deal
him back.
with 8-year deal in the S Liga. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm just awaiting that announcement that's gonna hit where it'll be like a picture of Cole Perfetti not smiling and be like, look at how happy he is about his deal.
Yes. They're gonna lean into that on his
100% they will.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, I just want to quickly address something. If you are watching on YouTube and you've come from Twitter, the LFP account is not streaming today because Mr. Musk has made it so anyone who's not a paid premium Twitter user, they can no longer go live. So the LFP account is not live. They pulled a lot of traffic. Like that's the thing. It pulled a lot of traffic for us during our streams, but for the time being, it is not. Obviously, you guys have found your way here because we've got a nice little crowd here already.
Exactly.
And we'll reevaluate down the line to see if we can maybe put that into motion in terms of getting us back with the little blue check mark, because apparently that means everything. But for now, it'll be on my account, on Connor's account, and obviously on YouTube, where most of you are here today. And that will be something going forward. But yeah, I mean, in terms of guys who have to be signed. I was debating leaving this all the way till question period, but I think it's a good segue now. Are we in PTO season now? Are we starting to look for guys who didn't get contracts and you're reaching that point where maybe they are coming into camp on a PTO and, trying to prove their worth? Like there's been a few in the past, but there's very rarely been PTOs that kind of turn into legitimately impact guys. But do you guys see this as a possibility? Like, is this one of those things where into camp there's some random, dude who's been around but hasn't been offered a contract who tries to
Some
compete for
dude
a
off
spot
the
this year?
street.
Some random dude. The Jets actually approached me for a PTO, and I said no thanks. I got a lot
You got
going
too
on
much
right
going
now.
on.
Yeah, too much going on. No, but I do think that we could see some PTOs, especially up front, because like the Jets have really good depth and a really good bottom six. So it's going to be tough for players to maybe crack that bottom six if they are coming in on a PTO. But you could compete with a David Gustafson for a roster spot. You could compete with a Rasmus Kapari, who I don't know is probably on the roster bubble this year. Like he needs to step it up after last year not scoring a goal. And playing, yes, fourth line minutes and not being elevated beyond that, but still not really making an impact offensively. So I do think that there could be some PTOs come in and maybe create some competition there that's already there with Gustafson and Kapari, but just kind of add to it a little bit. Before we get to Elliot's thoughts, Doug, hitting the nail on the head here. We are almost at 400 subs. So if you could help us
We're
out, hit the
almost
subscribe
there.
button, hit the notification bell so that it notifies you every time we go live at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Elliot, is it PTO season?
It is definitely PTO season, and I think if you're a team like the Jets, you need to be very much active in that sort of PTO market. I don't even know if it is
Dominate
a market.
the PTO market. Yeah.
But I think you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
When you're a team close to the cap, I think bringing guys that are on PTOs are big, right?
Yeah.
I just think that it's a better way to maybe bring in some extra depth. I know the Jets are quote unquote deep, but at
maybe
the
on
same
defense
point,
too, like Heinola and Miller are theoretically your third pair right now, or Stanley and Miller. Well, the next, you see the schedule on the left there. The next thing is some roster predictions, but maybe defensively. I mean, Ville Heinola has to be an NHLer this year, whether he's a bubble guy or a seventh defenseman depth. He needs to be in the NHL because he will get claimed on waivers 100%. So I don't know, maybe you create some competition. Maybe you're worried about Ville Heinola's ankle and how he responded to that injury last year. So you're going to bring someone in just in case you waive him for some circumstance, right? So I think both up front, goaltending, I think they've got enough there, so there won't be a goal.
I think center for sure. I think at least one or two centers down the middle for sure, and then I think at least one or two defensemen. I don't think they go crazy, but I think they should try to at least bring a couple guys in just to see what they can get.
Yep, totally.
Well,
totally.
I've pulled up something here where it's just kind of shown guys who, based on their past cap hit, who's still unsigned, going into the year. I have to wonder. I know he's not a center, but can you believe that Jakub Vrana is going to be a PTO candidate? He's someone I would be interested in maybe giving a shot to play in a middle six role because he's got a track record of being decent at production, and then he got buried, because of his contract. Like he was making $5 million.
Man, he wasn't so good on the Capitals.
I know
on that. Oh, he was so good.
But then you've got guys like Kevin LeBanc.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't like him at his cap hit, but I'd wonder about possibly fourth line center Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, he was on the
he could be
last year again on a crazy high contract. So no team really.
That's not right, is it? Max Pacioretty hasn't signed anywhere.
Well, didn't he get hurt again?
He did, but he's been rehabbing, and I thought he was going to get like a league minimum someplace to.
I think
give it
he's had like 2 Achilles tears, and then
I'm sure that's probably.
I think that's probably unfortunate. It's unfortunate because he was in his prime again, a dominant player, and obviously age is kind of catching up to him here, and he's had these leg injuries the past couple years. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names out there, and Tyler Johnson actually does interest me as a 4C. I know the Jets have a lot of options there, but I feel like if Tyler Johnson was on a $1 million contract, he would have been dealt at the deadline or been like a lot
Yeah.
of teams kind of in on him. Not that he's like a top 6 center, like top of the center market.
It's
Tyler
great
Johnson.
depth.
Teams would have been in on him as a 4C for their team, right? And their championship contending playoff level teams. And if they had a hole at 4C or maybe 3C, he could kind of patch that up too. So I don't know. That's interesting. I think he's too good for a PTO. I think he'll get signed, honestly. But
I don't know. Like we've reached, it's July 21st, that you'd think the guys that, because that's it. He's been around, and I wonder if guys are just like concerned about how much impact he would actually have at this point. And I do want to bring this up because I just saw his name show up in the chat. Why are the Jets not looking at a guy like, I mean, maybe they were, but Daniel Sprong?
Oh, that contract was
so what, 875?
975.
975 for a guy who scores 20 goals like in 12 minutes a night. Yeah, 43 points last season, averaging 12 minutes a night.
Yeah.
And he is the type of guy you go after. He's the type of guy you sign for NHL depth, that you put him in Appleton's spot. That improves your third line immediately, because let's be real, like there is moments where you can get some offensive production out of that trio there. And Nino has a track record of scoring somewhere around 20 goals in his entire career.
Yeah.
Lowry has these little weird stretches where he scores like 5 goals in 6 games.
Yeah.
But if you have a guy who puts up 20 goals in limited ice time, who you could move up if someone gets hurt, that's what you sign, especially when it's at that level. Like I would have been okay at Sprong at $1 million.
Yeah, $1.5 million, 2.
Yeah.
I think 2 is even like, oh yeah, that's pretty solid.
There's got to be something else here, though. I feel like I don't want to say like he's got to be a bad teammate or something. Like I'm not gonna pin that on him because obviously we don't know. But like you said, Brian, the guy scores 20 goals a season. Like he's one of the best per 60 players. And here we are in the middle of July, and he's unsigned and going for $900K.
Here's my best example. You look at a guy like Gustav Nyquist.
Yeah,
dude is a rolling 20 goal scorer, but teams just Thomas Tatar. Nobody. It's just the way the league goes. If you are not right? I think it's a lack of commitment, but it's also the teams don't want to, like, unless you are one of the league's premier goal scorers, they just feel like 20 goal scorers are a dime a dozen and you can sign any of them, which that is not the case. It just feels like GMs way undervalue depth goal scoring, and they only seem to care about it obviously at the trade deadline. Why Thomas Tatar and Gustav Nyquist are always at the top of trade boards, because they always are on bad teams because nobody else wants them. Then they're at 17 goals by the trade deadline, and teams go, ooh, he'd be a great pickup, and trade a 3rd round pick for him or 4th round pick. So it's just, I don't know.
Say, this conversation about PTOs and center depth, Matt brings up a great point here. If Lambert wins the 2C job at a training camp, which we can transition into roster predictions now, but say that happens, nobody on the market is better than what Nemeskov's going to bring at 4C. And then even if Nemestikov is 2C, and then Lambert, I guess, starts in the AHL, not really sure what maybe then PTO, but I think it'd be more likely on the defensive end that they bring in maybe a better depth compete or winger depth. Yeah.
There's not a lot of good like defensemen out there that I'd be willing to put a feeler out on. Like the top guy there is like Nikita Zaitsev and Tyson Barrie. So no.
Nah. Yeah.
No. I'd take a fly maybe on Barrie, but that's about it.
But like Colin Miller's better, or like a more well-rounded defenseman.
Yes, I agree.
I think Tyson Barrie I honestly try him at forward.
Try him at wing.
Yeah. But
Jets bring in wing depth, Tyson Barrie.
Yeah, exactly. Connor, I know you said that this is a good point to transition into roster predictions, and it is. But before we do that, we're going to hear from our new sponsor, BetterHelp, who has joined us for the next little while here. And then we'll be back. We'll have a couple, predictions maybe. I mean, let's be honest, it's not going to be the hardest thing to predict this year what the roster is going to look like, but
Are you
we'll have our
sure?
thoughts on it.
Connor
We'll see.
Hellebuyck's going to make the team, everyone. It's going to be okay.
Oh,
I don't know.
Mark Scheifele is on the bubble. But we'll talk more about that when we come back. But we're gonna hear from our sponsor right here, and we will see you in a few minutes. This episode of the Level Flight Podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. In a world where everyone is posting everything always, we're exposed to everyone else's experiences. It's difficult to avoid feeling FOMO or that you're comparing yourself to someone else. I tend to see people traveling around the world and find myself wondering, what would it be like to be in their shoes? Well, comparison is a thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have so you can start living your best life. Therapy isn't something that's exclusive to people who have experienced trauma, and can be a valuable way to work through your needs that are specific to you. It can help establish healthy habits, coping skills, and allow you to reframe some of your own viewpoints on your experiences to become the best version of yourself that you can be. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. And welcome back, everyone. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring us. They have, hopped on board with the network here for the next little while. So really happy to have them around. Roster construction. I don't think there's too many huge surprises on the horizon. I feel like that last, defensive spot is going to be probably the biggest battle we're going to see.
2C.
Not, I guess, yeah, but I feel like we know the candidates.
Yes.
So like I'm not necessarily like I know off the top of my head who is probably going to be the 2 in that battle, and I know it's going to be very easy for us to say, oh, Brad Lambert because he's flashier. Well, let's be honest, like he's going to stand out more than Nemesnikov does, and
Yes.
that's 100% going to happen. But I'm very curious to see where our Neil goes with that. But in terms of lines, obviously the 2C is up for debate here, but with what we're going into camp with, like, are we looking at anything different from what we saw last year? And are we going to see any sort of shakeups in camp?
I'm just picturing this right now. The scenes when we're there, training camp, first line rush, Ehlers, Scheifele, Velarde. Everyone in the crowd starts clapping, goes nuts. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, I think, like line combination and stuff like that'll actually be interesting to see if, like, I'm interested to see if Scardinale comes in and Connor and Scheifele are playing together because they have all the time. They talked about this little analytics summit, and the analytics do say that, yes, they outscored their opponents just barely. And they also, get outchanced at 5-on-5 and things of that nature. So I'm going to be interested to see kind of whether or not those guys are together and what his explanation is for either side of it. If Ehlers is up there with Connor and Scheifele, or if, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I'm super excited to see kind of this battle for 2C. And I've said all along, I don't think Brad Lambert's going to win the job out of training camp. I think the Jets opening night against the Edmonton Oilers, I truly believe that Vladislav Nemesnikov will be the second line center. And then maybe by November, by December, if Brad Lambert is lighting up the AHL, and maybe then you use him as kind of a mid-season addition and get him some NHL games. I think he'll for sure get some NHL games this year. It's just a matter of how many. But I think out of camp, that's Nemesnikov's spot. And then the defense spot, like, is it Ville Heinola? He won the job last year, but had a major ankle injury, never got back into the lineup. The Jets were incredibly healthy on the blue line last year too. Until Brendan Dillon got hurt, his hand like sliced open in the playoff game. No one really got hurt. So that'll be something to watch for, is the Stanley versus Heinola battle that we've been having for years now is the Stanley Heinola. So I'm really interested to see that. If I had to guess right now, Nemestikov 2C and Logan Stanley opening night is your 6th defenseman with Colin Miller. I think that's
I
where
hope
we're headed.
no one skates around them because let's be honest, they're not keeping up.
Yeah.
We'll see what Scott O'Neill does. We'll see. This is his first run of the lines. It'll be interesting. Well, not first. No, I mean, yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me is how much do they lean into that analytics summit? Because the lines will very much tell how much that they're actually like taking into consideration the summit and how much they're actually leaning into that. So I would really hope that as Andrew talks about in the chat here, I really do think that Villy did hit his training camp form. He was, I would say, I don't think he was
By the end of the year, yeah.
maybe a step below that, but he was still one of the best defensemen in the AHL, and it wasn't even close. I think the biggest thing, yes, towards the end of the year, but like Connor said, there were no injuries to the Jets back end, so it was really hard for the Jets to consider even calling him up, right? So I think that, I don't know, it's hard to say what I would like to do in terms of that D spot, because there are going to be some people that want bigger in size and all that sorts of stuff. And I think the player that would fill in that big end size really only fills or
they have a guy that's 6'7" on their roster.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They have a guy that's 6'7". I don't think he really fits any other style of play that you're looking for. Like, again, if you're really wanting to fill Brendan Dillon's spot, I'm sorry, Logan Stanley is not the Brendan Dillon replacement.
No.
That is not. He is not Brendan Dillon.
No.
He is the best way to describe Logan Stanley, as politely as I can put it, is he's a 6'7" left-handed defenseman.
But again, last year down the stretch, he was good, and we all said it.
I think he was.
In the playoffs, he was.
I think he was okay, but at the same point,
sure.
I have been adamant that his skating speed is not good enough in today's NHL. It is not good enough. And when they throw him in against the Oilers, which game was there? Was a game where he had been in the press box for a couple weeks, and the first game they played him against was either Carolina or the Oilers, and it was just very appalling and very confusing, and he didn't keep up. And I get it was because he was sitting in the box for a while. I understand that. But even on a normal day, if Stanley's been in the lineup consistently, I still don't think he has enough speed to keep up with NHL forwards to actually make a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, his impact comes from, using the long reach, hitting, fighting, as we saw a lot down the stretch. Like, I think as a 6, that's kind of his role, and he's accepted that. And the Jets, they paid him 1.25 this a few weeks ago. So I think you take a look at the money, you follow the money. They paid Stanley more. I know that's a bad argument for why he's going to win the job out of camp, but I think
it's probably due to NHL time.
NHL coaches as well love safe options. Safe, like Connor and Scheifele together, safe. They know each other. They love playing together. I'm going to put them together because they just play well together, and they're just kind of stuck in their ways. Logan Stanley was a good 6 down the stretch last year. Ville Heinola, kind of a risky option, coming off an injury, kind of a more high risk, high reward player with the way he plays in transition offensively, right? Like, I think NHL coaches love safe, and I think we're headed towards Nemestikov at 2C and Stanley at 6.
And here is my rebuttal to that. You don't win cups or championships by playing safe.
I don't agree with
so yeah, I know. I'm just putting that out there for everybody else. That
I don't agree with it. I'm just saying that's
to win a cup, you can't be safe. I don't think I've ever heard of any team that has ever played it safe and won a championship. Like, I'm going to use actually a Canadian example, not hockey, and going to basketball here. Do you think the Raptors played it safe by trading DeMar DeRozan?
right?
I don't think that the Raptors would have been completely buried as a franchise if they had traded away DeRozan and not won a championship with Kawhi Leonard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't play it. That's not playing it safe. You trade away the fan favorite and one of the actual people who wanted to stay and play in Toronto. You trade him away for a player who had made it known that he wanted to go to a different, on the complete opposite side of the country in the States.
Yeah.
You trade for him, and he says, I'm only going to probably be here for a year. Now, actually, we're hearing that he was potentially, if Paul George hadn't been traded to the Clippers, that actually he was going to stay in Toronto. But either way, my point is you can't play it safe. So fine, if you want to play Nemestikov at 2C, that's playing it a little bit safer than I would hope. And, playing Logan Stanley in the 6D spot, which I get isn't a huge, oh my God, that's a groundbreaking position, but it's still important. Right. It's not playing it safe.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw another thing there where it's the NHL's a copycat league, and have we not seen defense groups turn more mobile and better skate? Even if they're big, they're still better skaters. That's the thing. Like the entirety of the NHL has become a better finesse game. And while there's still the toughness, and there's even more of the toughness last year, it had to be coupled with guys who could skate. And if you put a pairing out there on your third pairing, and obviously it's going to be sheltered, but a third pairing of two guys who are not known for their skating ability and more of that sort of stay at home, just kind of do your work in the corners, that pairing is going to inevitably get buried because they're not going to be able to break the puck out very well. And I honestly think that having Colin Miller as, your 5, Ville Heinola as a 6 with a guy who, if you want to go safe, Miller is the safe guy. You can compare it on a very smaller scale to the pairings of guys like, even for example, on the team, Morrissey, DeMello. Morrissey can go off and do his own thing, and he can be offensively dominant because DeMello is not flashy. DeMello knows where he needs to be. DeMello knows where he needs to cover. On a smaller scale, Ville Heinola can use his skating. He can use his passing, his offensive sense in such a bigger role if he has someone who he can trust. I don't think either one of those guys, if you roll Stanley Miller, are going to be a difference maker in terms of what's going to, end up on the offensive end, which, as we know, the offensive end from the back end is kind of a huge deal in the NHL these days. And if you want to be competitive in this league, you have to follow the models of other teams. If you're going backwards, if you're just getting a guy in there who's big and who is tough, and obviously you lose that level of toughness from Dylan, but I don't think that the gaining of toughness is, at the expense of losing the ability to be that transition guy. And Dylan was so strong as a defender, saddled with Neil Pionk, who was chaotic as you could ever imagine. I don't think that you can take that risk.
Yeah. And, Matt brings up, he's more worried about the second pair than the third pair right now. I agree. The second pair, if the third pairing is Heinola Miller, then the second pairing, regardless, I think is going to be under a bigger microscope when the season actually gets going. I think in training camp, there will be a lot around Heinola Stanley, who's going to win the job. And then the second pair will kind of fly under the radar then. But when the season starts, like Neil Pionk
turns it over.
He's in a contract year. Dylan Sandberg is moving up into a top 4 role. Like this is a big step for this pairing. They've played well together in the past in their minutes, whether it's a top 4 role or the third pair. When it gets shuffled around, they've played well together. The last time Neil Pionk had a really strong season, it was a contract year. This is a contract year. I really like Dylan Sandberg's game. Like I'm a big fan of the way he plays. And I think his puck moving abilities kind of fly under the radar as well, or like maybe are a little bit underrated. I don't think he's like this dominant transition player, but he's a defensive defenseman and he can move the puck well. And that's a real asset.
I think the reason why it flies under the radar is it's similar to what happens with Dylan DeMello. His mistakes are loud. Normally Sandberg is pretty calm under pressure, but when both him and DeMello are similar, when they make mistakes, it is loud. Like, oh, why did you throw the puck right in front of the net? Oh, goal. Yeah, it's right. Yeah. Like they're very similar in that sense. And
Yeah.
I think that didn't we also see, it was either last season or the year before, when Sandberg had more ice time with Neil Pionk, he was the one that seemed to be able to keep Neil's chaoticness a little bit, at least
they've played
less
well.
off the page. Not that I don't know if they played. I don't remember if they played exactly like well, but I remember that when Morrissey Pionk was the worst, Dylan Pionk was all right, and then it seemed to be that Sandberg was able to still minimize a lot of what Pionk was doing. So maybe he can do that again. And now that he's also developed a lot more.
And also another thing is like Brendan Dillon was a fantastic top 4 defenseman, defensive defenseman, stay-at-home guy. But I'd say Sandberg is a better skater, just like a better mover. Like he's quicker, which might give that pairing the opportunity to, spend less time playing defense and more time playing offense, which is where Neil Pionk, if he does thrive anywhere, it's in the offensive zone. And I think maybe playing with a better skater, Neil Pionk also has had some skating issues. Like last year, he got burnt a few times, like foot speed was an issue for him. So I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just throwing out hope for the second pairing and I'm not as worried about it, but I'm just a big fan of Dylan Sandberg and the way he plays. So I think I'm
right there with you.
Yeah. This is an iced Nespresso coffee, which is
not
like
your mate.
So it's ice forte, so you put ice in it, but then it comes out hot. So then the ice just melts and it's just like a lukewarm coffee. It's the weirdest thing. But anyways, that's the coffee we're having this morning.
I'm having also Nespresso, but it's the Malazio, but with vitamin B12 in it, because gotta stay healthy.
Interesting. Gotta have your vitamins, kids.
Yeah.
I love this argument every time someone signs like a contract that the fan base doesn't like. There's this like, oh, is he more tradable? Which I don't know. Is Stanley more tradable now? I mean, I guess. But I remember when who was it? JT Miller signed his massive extension, and Canucks fans were like, "Oh, now he's more tradable. It's okay. Don't worry about it." Like,
God, what would they have done if they traded him?
And now he's
still irrelevant, I guess.
Nearly 100-point player. So I want to talk about this too.
Yeah,
Elias Salamonson. We're talking about roster predictions. Brian, where are you at on Elias?
I am, and I wrote about this too, where I recently put out a piece on the Hockey Writers about levels of depth that the Jets now have organizationally, and having a guy like Salmonson step in to a professional role in North America, he's going to have an opportunity to play in the top 4 down with the Moose, because like he's going to end up being, either paired with maybe a Hayden Fleury or a Dylan Coughlin. So guys who have been around. And I think that it's a good thing for him to be learning that smaller ice and how he plays his game with someone who can kind of, guide him around and everything. And I also think that the rest of the team has a nice little balance of guys who have played hundreds of games across all levels.
Yeah.
With a bunch of guys who have only played, 1-2 NHL games in their time so far in their career. So what's interesting about, I think, Salmonson is he is someone who has developed so quickly because he missed time with injury. And then when he came back to Skellefteå, he has been outstanding. And the expectations for him, and seeing him even like in development camp, just the way he moves, obviously it's very difficult to project off of that. But just, I think he's a guy who, if he finds his footing early, he could be an option down the road based on, injuries and everything, because he could end up being, in a month or two, he's adjusted way quicker than people expected. He just seems like one of those guys who could adjust fast.
And I also think I agree with you 100%. And I also think next year, tell me if this makes sense or if I'm completely out to lunch, but I think we'll see more performance-based, not like benchings, but like roster moves in general. So the Jets probably not going to be a 110-point team next year. I mean, they lost a lot of key free agents. Brendan Dillon, probably at the top of the list. Sean Monahan, Toffoli, Bressois. So I and new head coach, kind of adjusting to that. Yes, he was a coach last year in the room, but it's still different. They won't be a 110-point team. Connor Hellebuck will have another great season, I'm sure, but maybe not a Vezina level season. We'll have to wait and see, especially with the losses on the defense core. With that being said, when the Jets, in December, instead of being first in the Western Conference and running the same defensive pairings every single night, Morrissey, DeMello, Dillon, Pionk, Sandberg, Schmidt, every single night, they might be fighting for a wild card spot. And then on the second night of a back-to-back, or, they've got a 4-game homestand coming up, and it's like, okay, the second pairing hasn't been great. Neil Pionk's really struggling. Call up Elias Salomonsson because you're in a wild card spot. What's working or what you're doing right now isn't working. And same goes for up front. I mean, if the Jets in December aren't in a playoff spot and Nemesnikov is still the 2C and Pionk's still the top 4 right-handed defenseman and Salo and Lambert are just in the AHL cooking, they're going to call, I think they're going to call them both up. I think there's more of a chance for that this year with kind of the veterans leaving and leaving some holes behind. And I think Elias Salomonsson, the way that you brought it up, his ability to move, we saw it at development camp, we'll see it again at training camp, gives him the pathway to adjust quicker than you might think. And I'm really excited to see kind of how he performs against NHL competition in camp with these one-on-one rush drills and defending Nikolai Ehlers off the rush or Kyle Connor, right? That's who he's going to have to defend, those level of players, if he plays with the Winnipeg Jets this year, even in a sheltered role. So I don't know. I think does that make sense? There's more of an opportunity for them to call someone up from the AHL, unlike they did last year with Lambert, because,
or in years past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting going forward here because, there's just these weird levels of, depth of who could be an impact guy down the stretch that we haven't really seen in years past. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with Salmonson. I think more than anyone else.
Yeah. That and Lambert, because Lambert's a year ahead of Salomonsson, right? Do I have that? I think I have that right.
Yes.
And he spent a full year in the AHL and played well and was on the all rookie first team and was an AHL all-star. He's done a lot in the AHL already in a short amount of time. And how quickly are they ready to kind of, as well as Nikita Chibrikov, we forget that they called up both of those guys last year in their last game, and it was one game, but Chibrikov scored his first goal, scored the game winner, didn't look out of place. Neither of the players looked out of place. I think he's a guy that could crack the bottom 6 maybe. It's very crowded right now with Iafallo, Barron, Niederreiter, Appleton making up the wings, but I don't know if you see the Jets maybe move out some cap space with an Iafallo or an Appleton. I think Chibrikov's the guy to kind of step in the bottom 6 as well, because I think the Jets are happy with how he played down the stretch last year, and the call up kind of signaled that. But Lambert is, I think, my number one story heading into training camp, just because he did his time in the AHL last year, and maybe we'll have a Kyle Connor situation where, yes, he put in a great year in the AHL. He'll play 5 games to start the year, and then
have 10 points and then
7, and then up comes Brad Lambert, right? I think that could happen. We'll see.
Yeah. I'd agree. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, and I'm sure that's going to linger over the team for a couple months. We're going to talk about our summer plans for the rest of the August and everything. We're going to take your questions. So we're going to hear a quick word before that, though, from DraftKings. And while we're doing that, think on some questions, drop them in the chat. We'll come back with our summer plans, and we'll head right into questions and then wrap things up here. But we're going to hear from DraftKings, and we will be right back. Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only 2 days the whole year without a game. 2! With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. And if you're new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY. or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.com/base. And welcome back in, everyone. Thanks again, as always, to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode of LFP Live. Folks, we have reached that point in the summer where we're grasping here. There's not a lot to talk about in terms of news.
Talk about brisket.
Yeah, I guess so.
Brisket. And, it's been a while since we've had like a full. Which yesterday, Connor, you weren't there. The press box was barbecue heavy in terms of what people were ordering. We had some people getting the chopped brisket sandwich. We had a pulled pork sandwich, the bullpen barbecue bowl from Big Smoke Barbecue, which has like all of the different meats, beans,
Big
coleslaw,
Smoke.
everything.
So our brisket guy, Sammy Smokes, actually knows Big Smoke. And
Really?
They actually went to it sounds like a smoking competition. I know it sounds wrong, but in Minneapolis together. Yeah, I did some Big J journalism on that, but
there you go.
There's always a connection. We live in Winnipeg. Come on. This is
absolutely.
This is not new.
But no, like we reached a point here where there's not necessarily going to be a lot of news to hit aside from the Perfetti extension. I'm not anticipating any massive trades in the heat of August. So what we're gonna kind of do here is sort of, I mean, unceremoniously, we're just gonna this is essentially the finale of season 2 of LFP. And so we have decided that for the next little while we're gonna take some time off here. If something happens, we'll show back up. And I mean, that's just the joy of us having the ability to do this online and kind of just saying, hey, something happened, let's talk about it. And maybe what we'll do is, if we have some time, which some of us do, that we might pre-record some stuff and randomly drop an episode, just if we wanted to talk. Maybe we'll do some of our quizzes just to keep things light and keep some content out during the summer and moving into the season there. And I think that what's going to happen here is probably from, so today's the 21st, probably for the next 2-3 weeks will be fairly quiet. And then we'll start getting into that point of, deadline of in terms of who's going to come into camp. We're going to hear more about, the Young Stars tournament, things like that, where, you're going to get closer to training camp, and then we'll show back up and talk about the storylines there. We'll probably get to training camp, a little bit here too. And, we've all got to head back to school in the fall. And then once we sort of get settled in there, then we'll be back up full steam. And, what we've done this year so far in terms of our growth and us doing the 2 episodes a week and the LFP Live has been fantastic for us. Yeah. We're looking to get back to that. And, we're going to, as I said, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break here, but we will be back. We kind of powered through last year, and it was tough to, stay on top of things, but
and it feels like there's even less this year.
Yeah.
To kind of defend ourselves a little bit. But like there was a lot that could have happened, with the Ehlers and McGrory situations. And then Perfetti still hasn't signed. But when Perfetti signs, we'll do a live or we'll do an episode. If anything happens, we will have stuff. But I think a little summer break for the next month, and then ramping back up in August with training camp. How much time this year are we going to talk about second line center? Start the timer. We already talked about it for like 20 minutes today. Never mind last year. This year, how much is it? I can't wait to have guests on and just be like, all right, second line center, who you got? Because this is just like, here we go again.
We'll have a weekly segment.
Why does X player get benched always late in the third period?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. But no, I think it's a natural end to the second season here, where we took a brief break in August last year and then rolled right back into it with very briefly kind of stepping away. But this year it feels more natural for us to take some time off and recuperate and come back with a lot more to talk about, and
Totally.
allows us to focus on some of our own things too that we've kind of been balancing. Elliot, with you're coming up on the possibility of some Sea Bears playoffs here. You obviously you've been talking a lot about them. Connor, you just launched a new show with our first ever
Go check
guest,
it out.
Liz Hood.
Yes.
Go check it out.
Deep
Deep dive on Colby Barlow.
So much fun. Go check it out.
Yeah.
And I unbiased thought it turned out great. So go check it out on the WSB channel.
And then like myself, obviously you all know that I spend most of my summers at the ballpark, and I'm doing more there in terms of my writing, so it does take up a lot of time. I just launched my first ever feature for the Winnipeg Sun with the Gold Eyes there, so it's been a lot of hard work this summer, and I think that being able to just kind of focus on that one thing is going to allow for a bit more creativity when we start back up too, where let's be honest, like for the next month, do you really want us just breaking down the roster position by position? Probably not.
Who is it?
Who's the backup goalie?
Yes, we didn't bring that up in the
Who gets sent down to the ECHL first?
Yeah,
Dom DiVincentis.
Jeez.
ECHL start. Norfolk Admirals starting goaltender.
RIP them being an AHL team.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had both Milwaukee and Norfolk as the Admirals.
Matt says he feels like he's being broken up with just for the summer. It's definitely us, Matt. It's okay. It's not you.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that kind of gets our thoughts out about what's going on. So yeah, this is it for season 2. But season 3 will be back in the next 3 weeks to a month. So keep an eye out for that. As always, our socials are probably the best place that you can follow. Twitter especially is where we're most active. So at Level Flight WPG. And then keep an eye on when we're, as Doug said earlier, notifications on YouTube, and you'll see when we're going live. So
almost at 400. Hit that.
Absolutely. But yeah, let's dive into some questions here. Let's see here.
Lots of great questions in the chat. Ready to go.
Start with some Ehlers talk, because we actually didn't bring them up too much today.
Not yet. Here we go.
Yeah.
We've got all season for that.
Yeah.
We should just one day we should just hit a 2-hour-long episode that's just like Connor Scheifele, Ehlers, Perfetti, second line center, Heinola Stanley, like every single hot topic you could.
Are you sure it would only be 2 hours?
It might be 5.
If you didn't put a timer on
it might be 5 or 6.
Yeah, it might
make it a full-time job.
If we couldn't see the little timer up in the corner there, we would still be going from like an episode that we recorded like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like if we started talking about what went wrong in the playoffs, we'd still be going.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because you have a lot of content to draw from when asking that question. But what Ehlers signed new contract before the trade deadline. This is something that I personally have come around on a little bit. The season ended and everyone was like, he's gone. He's getting traded. He's always on the second line here. He probably wants a top line opportunity. Another team would theoretically be giving him that when they traded for him and would sign him to a new extension. But then at the draft, you heard Kevin Cheveldayoff say like, well, Nikolai Ehlers is a big part of our future. We're really excited to have him back. Things of like really talking him up. And then people thought, oh, maybe he's just talking him up because he's trying to bump his trade value. I could totally see this kind of the Scheifele Hellebuck thing where all summer long, they're gone. And then we hit training camp. They're still here. What's going to happen? They're in the last year of their deal. And then boom, right before the season starts, they sign an extension. I don't think to answer the question, like before the trade deadline, for sure before the trade deadline, I think if he's unsigned by the deadline and the Jets aren't like first in the West, he will get traded. He'll be on the top of every trade board.
Yep.
But I do think the Jets are going to want to get this done before the season, like with Scheifele and Hellebuck, because there's too much risk, especially with Nikolai Ehlers too. He's been healthy the last couple seasons, but like, or last season specifically played 82 games. He talked about how that was a big milestone for him, but he's been injured in years past a few times. You take him into the season, maybe he gets hurt. Then you got a guy on an expiring deal. Can't trade him because he's hurt. Like, I think that's a big risk. So I think we might get a resolution on that on a contract extension if that were to happen. before the season, like maybe during training camp or maybe right at the end of training camp, like a Shifley Hellebuck. I don't know what you think about that, Elliot.
I quickly just want to circle back. Are you sure players that are injured have no trade value?
Oh, Vegas.
Yeah,
Vegas will come calling so quickly.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Don't you
Vegas,
dare.
how long? How long is he out for? 3 months? Perfect. I'll give you 4 first round
Right in
picks
time
right
for the
now.
playoffs.
Yeah.
I will give you. Never mind. I'm not gonna finish that sentence. I think yeah, it has to be something soon-ish if they're gonna get this deal done. Because then as soon as the season starts, the player goes, "Oh, I'm playing, so
Right.
focusing on hockey."
Well,
Okay, well,
Nikolai
you
Ehlers
kind
gonna
of got
show up
another
with
thing
Shifley
going on.
that Shifley and Hellebuck did last year. It was like the most covered scrum that I've ever seen, like packed to the wall. And Shifley and Hellebuck were both just like, "Well, I'm a Jet right now. I'm here to win a cup." And it was like, "All right,
Yeah.
cool.
So
Have you heard the rumors?" Yeah, but I'm here right now. It's like, you make a great point.
I'm just here so I don't
And
get
then
fined.
Steelers is going to
Yep.
say the same thing probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I
geez.
think that if anything is going to happen, it should happen before the season.
I think so too.
Let's see. Going from Ehlers to his buddy. Do they look at bringing back Line? I feel like it's just like a natural like thing to talk about. I don't think it happens. Like it just doesn't seem natural for either side there. And I mean, I think there was another thing here where any thoughts on Line's future? I think that Patrick Line is such an interesting player because the hopes for him were so high and then things soured so quickly. And obviously he's dealing with his own things right now and he's back training, which is great to see. He's back in his physical conditioning routine and everything. And I think that he'll play on an NHL team this year. I just don't think it's either the Columbus Blue Jackets and I don't think it's the Jets. And I also think that a package for him is going to be fairly small because of his contract. Like there's going to have to be some sweeteners there. And like, he's very, in the last couple of years, at least, fairly unproven to see that he can get back into form, which had him scoring, 30 to 40 goals a season.
Yeah.
Like, can he still maintain it? Can he still be a power play guy that, becomes that shot that everyone is scared of? And to be honest with you, whether it's with the Jets, whether it's with anyone, I want to see him get back to that expectation level because I have never had as much fun as I did when I was watching Patrick Laine rip one-timers past, every Dallas Stars goalie in the history of the league. Like he would just be just hat tricks left and right, a 5-goal game. You don't see that level of excitement really. And to see what he's going through now, it's tough because you really want him to get back to that. But regardless of where he goes, I want him to be as successful as he can possibly be because I think the league's a better place when Patrick Laine is doing stuff.
I could not agree more. And to answer Ascended X Sands question on the, what would the package look like? Maybe be it Ehlers or McGroarty or some picks. But the Laine thing was interesting. This offseason, obviously, it's been a topic because he requested a trade, reportedly. I think the cap numbers don't really make sense on it. And I think because he's making $8.7 million for the next 2 years, the Jets have 5.8 in cap space. They still need to sign Perfetti. And if say they gave Perfetti 2 years, $3.5 million, it's tough to fit an $8.7 million contract onto the books without trading Nikolai Ehlers back the other way. So like they could look at, or maybe trading Iafallo and McGroarty. Like
Utah's a good fit for him.
Yeah, it would have to it'd have to do some, cap gymnastics to make that work. Columbus would theoretically retain a little bit on that deal coming back, but I don't know. It's a cool thought, but I don't see the fit cap wise. I don't see it.
Yeah.
Away from hockey, pancakes or waffles?
That's a tough one.
That is tough.
It's waffles for me.
Waffles?
The structural integrity of a waffle for me lasts longer. And I'm very texture based when I eat. So like the second that like a pancake gets soggy, I'm not enjoying. I'm gonna eat it, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I would. Same thing with like when you have a very stacked burger. the longer it sits and that bottom bun just starts disintegrating, I stop enjoying myself. So anything that gets when it gets saturated gets unenjoyable for me, like a pancake. It doesn't happen as much with a waffle. I feel like the walls of the grid. I'm getting scientific here.
Yeah.
It provides a level. Like I want to know the engineering of a waffle and why it's that much better.
Yeah. I mean,
I love that,
I'll
like the way
go-
like the cups that you can have like the little things of butter and like, the
yes.
syrup. You get that little bite. Oh,
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think I'll go waffles for that reason as well. It's just more convenient. The pancake, like, I'm not a breakfast like a desserty for breakfast kind of guy. Like pancakes and waffles, I think are too like
eating something savory.
sweet. Feels like I'm eating a cake, and it's like 8 a.m. It's like I can't
Give
eat that.
me like an omelet over that any day.
Oh yeah, I'm big on eggs. I'm not a big pancake.
Big
or
egg
waffle.
guy.
Big egg guy. But great question.
Geez.
Great question.
Yeah,
Let us know in the
question.
chat. Yeah, people are. This is dividing the chat room.
Yeah.
Team waffles for life. Pancakes. If I'm cooking pancakes, making pancakes right now. So there's my answer. There you go. that's a good answer. Yeah.
Doug, I am absolutely cooking my own breakfast. I am
eggs. I can make eggs.
Yeah, I'm making an omelet, maybe ham and cheese, maybe throw some spinach in there, chop up some mushrooms, have a nice loaded omelet. Sometimes I'll do like a classic breakfast sandwich on a croissant, maybe some Swiss.
Jesus Christ,
I'll
man.
do.
Wow.
Listen, I love my breakfast.
Scramble them, maybe.
See, I like for me, I'll enjoy eggs in any form. I love eggs. Sometimes I'll have one of those. I'll get just a bunch of eggs just to hard boil because they're just like the perfect little snack. Cut them in half, salt, pepper down the hatch. Like it's the perfect little snack.
No.
Yeah.
There's a few questions that we missed in here, but a lot of them have been covered in what we talked about, earlier. But
here, let's see.
I was just going to quickly say, I got to head out quick. So I will see everybody in season 3. Stay tuned on socials.
Yes. Okay.
Have a good day, everybody.
See you, Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot. Have a good one.
Peace out.
I do want to talk about this because we didn't talk about the goaltending.
Oh, I missed that entirely.
Yes. Do you think Hilly will again have to play 60 games with the quality of the backups behind him? Shortly, yes. I think he is going to play close to 60 games. I mean, I do like the Comrie and Kakinen signings. I think they're good enough options at backup goaltender. But I think Connor Hellebuyck's just coming off of a Vezina. The Jets, again, last year, they had the opportunity and they didn't really take it to play Brossoit kind of like a lot for a backup goalie. Because, down the stretch, they were fighting for home ice, but they were in first early on in the season. Could have, banked some rest days for Hellebuyck. Hellebuck's a goalie that likes to play a lot. But this year, like I said, I'm predicting the Jets to take a little bit of a step back, which might mean that in January, they're right on the playoff line and they have a 4-game road trip against all Western Conference teams. It's like Connor Hellebuyck is going to play all 4 of those games because you need those games in the Western Conference playoff race. Like, I think they won't have the luxury to just sit them just for the sake of sitting them because they have such a gap in the standings like they did last year with 110 points, finishing as the fourth best team in the NHL. So I do think he plays a lot of games and maybe the most he's played in a while, more than last year. Well, what was last year? 56, 57 or something. So I think he'll be right around there again.
I would
maybe
think so.
even higher.
Let's see. I feel like in terms of going back, that's kind of what we got there. And just briefly, I feel like Matt asked this way earlier on, and
yeah,
we didn't. I think there's going to be marked improvements purely because I think they have identified the fact that some things didn't work. For me, that the thing that's going to really be the show of whether things are taking a turn here is if the penalty kill gets more aggressive, because their passive nonsense last year was not good at all. And like that's what killed them, where it was just you'd have teams just cycling the puck all around them and then they just stand there and let them get fired upon. So I think that's my biggest thing, is if they get a little bit more aggressive, I'll be happier.
I agree. And I think the power play too, like Does Scheifele move into the middle next year, maybe? And maybe Perfetti's on his strong side, and he's kind of the facilitator down that wing. Scheifele's in the middle, Connor's on his one-timer, Morrissey, Velarde down low. I think with Velarde, the power play has like a high enough floor to where they won't be a bottom 10 unit. That's just what I think. I like.
He doesn't stay healthy.
Yes, and he is so dominant at the side of the net and such a threat to not only score but pass and hit Kyle Connor on the back door with a no look pass as he one times it in and hit the guy in the bumper. Whether it's which kind of if it's Velarde down low, I think you need to have a lefty in the middle there, because if he's making that pop pass right to the middle, Scheifele would have to corral it theoretically on the right side and then shoot it, where a left-handed player like Monahan could just one time it. So you might need to have like an Alex Iafallo we saw play the bumper role last year a few times, but maybe Kyle Connor moves in the middle, or Perfetti's a bumper guy. I don't know. We'll see. I think, but to answer the question, penalty kill has to get more aggressive. I think that'll take a step forward because the penalty kill was a top 10 unit the year before and then took a step back last year, even though Hellebuck had a fantastic year. So it was weird, but the power play, high enough floor, Gabe Velarde, and I'd like to see Josh Morrissey shoot the puck more in the power play. I've been a big advocate for him just ripping shots from the point, and he doesn't do it enough, I don't think. So, yeah, Gabe Velarde's gonna carry that power play to at least top 20.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they've got enough talent there where they should be better than that bottom unit that we saw for so much of last year. So
I think the special teams can't get worse next year. Honestly, well, like it can theoretically, but.
Yeah, I'd rather get hurt being aggressive than get hurt by not doing anything, right? So
I'm with you.
Yeah. And I believe with that
is it.
That's it. Where I mean, it's kind of bittersweet. It'll be weird not thinking about doing the LFP every once in a while here, but I think it's hard to understate the importance of how big the second season for us has been.
Yes.
Like this has set the tone for us for any future development that we have. Like the amount of growth that we've had in the first 2 quarters of 2024 is almost unbelievable. Like it's surreal to us with the amount of support that we've gained. And, it is July 21st. And between Twitter, both Connor and I are streaming, and YouTube, we're over 300 people watching. Like YouTube right now has, I think 20 people, but they're all active in chat.
Yes.
Connor's got, a nice little, boost of people here. And it's the fact that we can be streaming on a hot July morning when no news has dropped in the last 3 weeks and still pull this many people into, listen to us, yap.
Yeah. Professional yappers.
I can't begin to, state how proud I am of, the where we've come from here in the last year. So
I agree. And just quickly, the lives have been so awesome. Like before we did these, we didn't have a way to interact with people who did listen to the podcast before and maybe, would reach out on Twitter now and then and we would respond, but there was this is a direct like
in real
question,
time.
like we're literally just a question time, like question and response. Like this is very interactive and that's what we want it to be. And we are so glad that all of you come out, are in the chat. We hope that you appreciate the interactiveness and us just kind of shooting the crap. I don't want to swear on here, but anyways,
it was close.
It was close. Yeah. But it's fun and we have a lot of fun doing it. And we really hope that you enjoy the interactiveness, even on a July hot, as Running Man said here, hot, sunny, Sunday in the summer. It's a lot of S's, but yeah.
Yeah. So as I said at the beginning there, thank you so much for, sticking with us, watching us grow. We had a nice little content meeting earlier this week that we've had a lot of ideas as how we're going to do things this upcoming season. We're really excited about that. We'll make that a bit, more clear down the stretch. There's a few things that need to be refined, but we've got some ideas that, could be fairly big for us this year. But, it's Sunday morning, LFP Live 21. We're wrapping up season 2. Folks, get outside and enjoy the heat, but not too long. Drink water. Please stay hydrated.
Yes.
I don't want to hear anyone having heat stroke or anything. If you're coming to the ballpark, stay cool, please.
Yeah.
But you know what? It may be hot outside, not as hot as the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, winners of 5 straight. They are now only a game and a half back of first place in the West Division. They wrap up their schedule before the All-Star break today. Sunday, family fun day at the ballpark. 1 p.m. first pitch. Goldeyes.com/tickets. Come on down. Enjoy a nice hot day. Let's head out. Let's
do it. I'll
let's call it.
I'll say that I'm going to the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival tonight. Yell at me if you see me, but
Scream at Connor.
Scream. No. Our family loves the headliner tonight, Nate Bargatze.
Oh, yeah.
So we are super pumped. We love all of his Netflix specials. We think he's the great. His style of humor is like very dry, and he like never smiles when he tells the jokes. He's awesome. So I'm super pumped for that. And it's going to be a gorgeous night. Hopefully, last night it was perfect. It was like super hot, but it cooled off right when, you know, the first act came up, and it was a gorgeous night. I'm hoping for the same tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for tuning in to season 2 of the Level Flight podcast. We will see you for season 3 in about a month. Stay tuned on socials. Have a great Sunday, and go Gold Eyes.